Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Uh, so, uh, if you haven't heard from me already, yesterday's video, I'm starting a new series essentially where I look back uh, when severe weather outbreaks occurred, when certain things happened, and like when certain severe weather or tornado outbreaks occurred, I always go back. Uh, I always like to go back and look at all the mesoscale discussions, look at the watches, look at what happened essentially that day, the tornado reports, severe thunderstorm reports, things like that. I like to do that because I think it gives me a better understanding for meteorology as I do want to definitely get my meteorology degree and major in meteorology and potentially Spanish as well. And so like I said earlier in yesterday's video, I'm starting a series where I essentially look back on severe weather days, days that are like not that didn't have the greatest things occur uh, in regards to severe weather. And so today we're going to be going over the April 28th, 2026 day of severe weather. We're starting at mesoscale discussion number 590 and ending at mesoscale discussion number 614. So we're going to be going over around 24 mesoscale discussions today. So be prepared to look at a ton of graphics, a ton of things, and read a lot of words. So you could learn something new from this. I technically can as well. So currently we have mesoscale discussion number 590, and to give you a breakdown of basically what mesoscale discussions are, they're essentially regional areas that the Storm Prediction Center issues that essentially dictates a potential chance for severe weather, and it also dictates if a watch is needed or not. So the Storm Prediction Center has been performing mesoscale discussions for ages, and so this is nothing new here. They usually issue these whenever severe weather is currently imminent or occurring for an area, and so it's very important for the Storm Prediction Center to disseminate this information regionally and timely. Uh, so there are common trends with mesoscale discussions. Usually the Storm Prediction Center combines radar, satellite, potentially interstate highways, convective available potential energy, shear, photographs, STP, and all that good stuff. All of that good stuff, radar, satellite, all that good things, all those things that are needed and necessary. So mesoscale discussions are formatted like this. The main graphic takes up like 80% of the screen, right? 80% of this, or 60%, whatever, is it takes up 60 to 80% of the graphic. Um, and it will always be uh, you'll know what the graphic looks like because there will be a certain circled area in a certain color with a certain description and a certain set of fields that will be plotted. So in this case, uh, there the text clearly states, watch possible, monitoring for an increase in storm coverage and intensity. Significant damaging hail may develop. If you look to your top left or the northwestern part of this graphic, it says the mesoscale discussion and then the number, which is 590. Um, if you look just below that, it says the date until it's valid, the date and time, valid until, and then below that, it says concerning, severe potential, watch possible, watch probability, 60%. Now, with the uh, probabilities with percentages, it's 5%, 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, and 95%. And with the severe potential, with like saying it as a word, it's uh, unlikely, possible, likely, and then needed soon. So it's watch unlikely, watch possible, watch likely, watch needed soon. And you'll know it when you see it. So the severe potential, it says there is a possible watch that could be issued, and the watch probability is 60%, meaning that there is a 60% chance that the Storm Prediction Center issues a severe thunderstorm watch or a potential tornado watch, but in this case, a severe thunderstorm watch, um, in or around in or around or for most of this region. Usually, when the severe thunderstorm watches or tornado watches are issued, usually they're for most of the counties that are included in a circle, in this circle or a circle, whatever. But some counties are left out. Some counties that are not in the circle get added to the watch when the watch is issued. So the Storm Prediction Center essentially just tweaks minor things because certain trends and convective stuff. Uh, so below the severe potential and then the watch probability is the most probable peak intensity of a certain hazard. Now, all hazards are hail, wind, and tornadoes. Tornadoes is not on this specific discussion because tornadoes are not favored in this environment. Uh, Specifically this environment that we're looking at right here. Again, this is not today. This is for April 28th. I will always post the the date in which this severe weather event occurred and the mesoscale discussion numbers so you could take a look for yourself. So the most probable peak intensity for hail, color coded, it could be this very light yellow all the way up to this pink. You never want to see the pink on the map because that means that a very high-end, very prolific severe weather event is occurring or about to occur. Expected to, likely. They're all synonymous, kind of hand in hand. So right here, uh, there on the left, the hail probable peak intensity of hail is around 2 to 3.5 inches in diameter. That's huge hail. And if those suckers hit you in the head, you're dead. You're you're either cruising for a bruising, or your arm gets lopped off, or you're dead. Uh, that those are literally the only couple scenarios that you have when dealing with hail like this. And then the wind is less than or equal to 60 miles per hour. Wind not referring to a tornado, but referring to wind damage caused by thunderstorms that usually form squall lines, which are just lines of thunderstorms that are, convectively augmented around the cold front, or some sort of uh, frontogenetic forcing line, whatever. And then on the bottom corner of the screen, you have fields plotted. Uh, fields plotted. So it's essentially the certain layers that the Storm Prediction Center uses to make a specific graphic. In this case, they used the MRMS RALA, which is radar plus geostationary operational environmental satellite infrared imaging. Sandwich. Sandwich is a type of layer and it's infrared as well. It's IR. So it's a type of a satellite surface observations, which are basically just these blue or sorry, I did not mean to say blue, green and red numbers. The red represents temperature, and the green represents what do you call it? Dew points. Dew points, temperature, that's what it represents. And usually the Storm Prediction Center can highlight very, very key and very important boundaries uh, based on these observations at the surface. Also, the Storm Prediction Center used, in this case, radar VID winds, so it's basically winds that are being tracked uh, by certain stations, and they basically help with tracking wind shear and just wind and any wind-related consequences. And then the O9Z uh, most unstable cape. So this is essentially in the morning of this is the morning of April 28th, probably the remnants of April 27th, but it's good enough. It's good enough to look at this because this technically did happen on April 28th, so it was basically the morning of April 28th. So the 9Z most unstable cape in joules per kilogram, and 9Z is 4 a.m. Central, 5 a.m. Eastern. So cool. And then effective shear in knots. Also on the southwest corner over here and by southwest I mean the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, there will always be a more simplified and zoomed out graphic, essentially, where the circle is being drawn, or polygon, whatever. It essentially takes all of this over overused and very complicated crap, and it essentially just puts out a plain sheet of the contiguous United States and puts that circle right there, and essentially draws and demarcates the boundary of which the mesoscale discussion will be residing. So, anyways, there also is always going to be a discussion that is associated with a specific mesoscale discussion. That's how it always is and always will be. And so it's very, very important that you know you can read the mesoscale discussion and you can understand it. Because yes, it's one thing to look at an image and essentially understand it, but if you have a description of that image, especially when it's related to weather, then you'll get a completely bigger, broader, better understanding of what you're looking at. So anyways, I really digress. So let's get into it. However, I did have to tell you this. So, usually the summary, I say usually because sometimes, things are a little bit different, but usually the summary already summarizes the text that's displayed on screen in the graphic. So sometimes I won't read the summary and I'll just go straight into the discussion. Other times I will read the summary because sometimes it may be just a little bit different. So pay attention to that. Alrighty, so probability of watch issuance 60%. Summary. Storms are expected to increase in coverage and intensity through the morning hours, with isolated damaging hail possible. A watch may be required. Discussion. Surface analysis shows a warm front moving northward into northwest Texas and across the Red River, with 68 to 70-degree dew points to the south. Both infrared imagery and GPS water vapor sensors indicate a rapid northward surge of moisture, with PWatt values increasing from 0.55 to over 1.2 in about 2 hours. Already, thunderstorms have developed 1 to 2 hours ahead of schedule southeast of Lubbock. I think that's what, yeah, southeast of Lubbock. I had to check, and a gradual increase has been seen in storm intensity. Southerly winds just off the surface will raise elevated instability values north of the warm front over the next several hours. Some forecast soundings indicate most unstable Cape over 4,000 joules per kilogram, though effective values will depend on moisture depth and quality in the elevated slab/layer. Clearly, the environment will favor hail regardless, with deep layer effective shear over 60 knots, along with steep lapse rates aloft and ample and increasing moisture. Uncertainty does exist as to how far north severe hail cells will develop, but consensus is at least into southern Oklahoma. Significant hail over 2 inches in diameter is quite possible, perhaps larger should sustained elevated supercells develop as depicted by some models. As such, a watch will need to be considered this morning. Be right back, I'm going to blow my nose. I'm back. I am back, everybody. So that was a mesoscale discussion number 590. Let's go to the next mesoscale discussion, which is number 591. That's not it. This is. So, the severe thunderstorm watch was already issued, and this is essentially a mesoscale discussion that's concerning the severe thunderstorm watch, because it says concerning severe thunderstorm watch number 168. The most probable peak intensity of hail will be 2 to 3.5 inches in diameter, winds 65 to 80 miles per hour from general thunderstorms, and tornadic winds are likely or were expected to be 85 to 110 miles per hour. Uh, and on here, the blue circled region, not the light blue, but the dark blue circled region says damaging hail and eventually severe gusts will remain possible. And as you can see, the radar with the satellite is available, along with surface observations, radar VAD winds, 12Z MU Cape, which is 7 a.m. Central, and effective shear. So that's quite fun. You can see there's a 4,000 most unstable convective available potential energy contour over here in southern Oklahoma and northern Texas, excluding the panhandles, of course. So that's not going to be very fun. Summary. Large hail and eventually damaging winds appear likely along the warm frontal corridor crossing the Red River Valley this morning. Discussion. A multi-cell storm complex is currently over Baylor and Archer counties in Texas, with impressive morning satellite presentation with overshooting tops and enhanced V signatures. These storms are riding along the warm front, which extends east-northeast into southeast Oklahoma. South of this boundary, a very moist and unstable air mass exists, with mixed layer convective available potential energy already over 3,500 joules per kilogram at 12Z. Given the effective deep layer shear of 50 to 60 knots and around 100 knots in high-level flow, this complex is forecast to persist through the morning and perhaps strengthen as surface-based convective inhibition is reduced further. In this case, more of a rightward propagation is possible. Elsewhere, strong elevated instability exists well north of the warm front. The 12Z Norman sounding shows most unstable Cape over 4,000 joules per kilogram along with ample deep layer shear, and should any cells form within the broad warm advection zone, large hail would be likely. So, usually what's said here and what's shown here and the fields plotted here will match here. So, that's mesoscale discussion number 591. Let's transition to 592. If this wants to load, here we go. Nice. So, mesoscale discussion number 592. This is concerning severe thunderstorm watch number 168. Severe thunderstorm watches will always be in blue, and tornado watches will always be in red. This is an orange-looking salmon-colored circle that's encompassing southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, southwestern Arkansas, and extreme portions of northern and northwestern Louisiana and their associated parishes. So, again, mesoscale discussion number 592. This right here says increasing storm coverage this morning with all severe weather hazards possible. Convective trends are being monitored for an additional weather watch. Over here, most probable peak intensity of hail is 2 to 3.5 inches in diameter. A tornado strength is expected to be around 100 to 125 miles per hour, and winds were expected to be about 65 to 80 miles per hour in this case. Fields plotted, radar, surface observations, radar VAD winds, 14Z ML Cape, which is 9 a.m. Central, and effective shear in knots. Alrighty, woo. Nice. We got a lot to read. Nice. Summary. Thunderstorms are expected to increase in aerial coverage across the discussion area this morning, with all severe weather hazards becoming very possible. Convective trends are being monitored for an additional downstream watch. Discussion. As of 1420Z, Mosaic radar data showed thunderstorms gradually increasing in coverage across south-central Oklahoma and north-central Texas, with the strongest storm being a supercell over Montague County in Texas. That storm is now located very near or just to the south of a warm front that extends from low pressure over western North Texas, east-northeast into central Arkansas. The south of that boundary, visible satellite, shows deepening moist convection near and to the southeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex. The 12Z Fort Worth sounding sampled a very moist boundary layer surmounted by steep mid-level lapse rates, yielding mixed-layer convective available potential energy values of 3,500 joules per kilogram. The cap was not overly strong, and latest model guidance continues to suggest a gradual increase in thunderstorm activity this morning from the vicinity of the ongoing storms over south-central Oklahoma and north-central Texas eastward towards the Arklatex. Regional 12Z soundings sampled the presence of strong mid to upper level winds, which will combine with the moderate to strong instability to support higher order storm modes, including supercells and Boeing structures capable of large to very large hail and damaging winds as the primary threats. The greatest potential for a few tornadoes will exist with thunderstorms that can favorably interact with the warm front in the area. Alrighty, so we're on to 593 instead of 592. 593. Here we go. Alrighty. So, this is a severe potential, watch likely, watch probabilities, 80%. This is for northeast Oklahoma, northwestern Arkansas, and southwestern Missouri. Increasing thunderstorm coverage is expected this morning. Large hail will be the main threat initially, with damaging wind potential this afternoon. A weather watch is likely. Fields plotted include radar and satellite imagery, VAD winds, 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time, most unstable Cape, and effective shear. Alrighty. Severe potential watch likely 80%. Strong to severe thunderstorms are expected to increase in aerial coverage across the discussion area this morning. Large hail will be the primary hazard initially, with damaging wind potential increasing this afternoon. A severe thunderstorm watch will likely be required to address the severe weather threat. Discussion. Recent radar trends indicate thunderstorms gradually increasing in coverage across portions of eastern Oklahoma, driven largely by a low-level warm advection regime occurring to the north of a surface boundary stalled over southeast Oklahoma into central Arkansas. Rapid refresh proximity, proximity soundings suggest the developing storms are rooted in a moist layer centered around 850 millibars, with steep mid-level lapse rates contributing to most unstable Cape of 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. Water vapor imagery shows a vigorous shortwave trough moving into western Kansas this morning with an area of downstream implied forcing for ascent progressively overspreading the discussion area over the next several hours. That, combined with the available reservoir of moderate elevated instability and relatively strong cloud-bearing shear, will support the potential for elevated supercells capable of large hail initially. Some cloud breaks, evident in visible satellite, may allow for a subset of the elevated storms to become surface-based by the afternoon, at which point a damaging wind threat will increase. Okay, that's not very good. So let's move on to 594. We're cruising through this now. Alrighty. So this is Mesoscale discussion number 594. Severe potential, watch possible with a watch probability of 40%. Tornado peak intensity progged 100 to 125. Progged wind intensity is 65 to 80, and hail progged is 1 inch to 1.75 inches in diameter. Also, I think I forgot to mention the Mesoscale discussion number 593, probable peak intensity, but oh well, I'm not going back. Fields plotted, radar and satellite, surface observations, radar VAD winds, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, mixed layer Cape, and effective shear. Here it says increasing large hail and damaging wind potential this afternoon. Convective trends are being monitored for a possible weather watch. Here we go. Ah, boy, the potential for damaging winds and large hail is expected to increase across the area this afternoon, and convective trends are being monitored for a possible severe thunderstorm watch. Discussion. Thunderstorms have persisted through much of the morning across the discussion area, with that activity being driven by modest low-level warm advection occurring along and to the north of an outflow boundary extending from around Greenwood, Mississippi, to north of Selma and Montgomery in Alabama. The 12Z Jackson, Mississippi sounding revealed the eastern edge of the elevated mixed layer has spread east into the lower Mississippi Valley, which when coupled with a moist boundary layer is resulting in estimated mixed layer CAPE of 20 to 2500 joules per kilogram as of 11 a.m. Central or 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. The 12Z convective allowing models often the 12Z convective allowing models offer various scenarios with respect specific decisions on thunderstorm evolution today. Some solutions suggest in situ storm intensification and coalesce into smaller forward propagating complexes, while others indicate the primary severe weather threat being associated with a complex of thunderstorms arriving from the Arklatex later today. Regardless, the general motion or notion, is for a gradual increase in surface-based storm coverage and intensity in the vicinity of the outflow boundary this afternoon. Relatively strong mid to upper level flow evident in the 12Z Jackson, Mississippi and Birmingham, Alabama soundings will support the potential for supercells and bowing structures capable of large hail and damaging wind gusts. The tornado threat is somewhat conditional and likely tied to any storms that can favorably interact with the outflow boundary. Wow, got a lot of words to read. Jeez. Let's move on to 595 now. There is no graphic available. Okay, that's not very good. Okay, okay, so we're gonna have to go here to see the graphic because apparently the graphic is not working. Hi. Sorry, that was my parents. They're getting home. So apparently, the graphic is not working on the main page, so I have to go over separately to the graphic full screen. Basically, it's essentially a bigger version of the graphic. It basically a mesoscale discussion number 595, valid until April 28th at 2 p.m. Central, concerning severe potential, watch likely with a watch probability of 80%. You could see over here, the hail is in red. That means that the hail is going to be a major threat to life and property, with prognosticated hail expected to have been, or be according to this mesoscale discussion, over 4 inches, greater than or equal to at least 4 inches in diameter. The tornado threat will also be up there with 100 to 125 miles per hour, and wind damage 65 to 80. The red circled region you could see down here for more simplification, or you could see over here, it says increasing supercell threat this afternoon. Very large hail and a few tornadoes are the primary hazards, and a tornado watch will likely be required. This L represents a low. This purple, I think, or pink dotted dashed line, whatever, represents, I think, an outflow boundary or something. And then the blue is a cold front, and the red and blue is an occluded front, basically. At least, I think. And then fields plotted, day cloud phase satellite. Latest surface observations, radar VID winds, 17Z, mixed layer convective available potential energy, or around 12 p.m. Central, and effective shear in knots. And then let's go over to 595, the website, because the stupid graphic's not currently available. So, it says summary. Supercell development is expected to become increasingly likely this afternoon with the potential for very large hail and a few tornadoes. A tornado watch is likely. Discussion. Latest meso-analysis places a surface low over northwest Texas with an attendant outflow boundary, which is a remnant from early days storms, stretching east across North Texas to the north of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. A dry line was becoming better defined from the vicinity of the surface low south-southwest through the Texas Big Country into the eastern Permian Basin and into the Concho Valley. Latest trends in visible satellite imagery indicate a developing cumulus field in the vicinity of the surface triple point, where objective analysis suggests ML CAPE has increased to as high as 3,500 to 4,000 joules per kilogram, with decreasing cap strength. Short-term model guidance is in reasonably good agreement in depicting the development of one or multiple supercells from the vicinity of the triple point east along the outflow boundary by as early as 19Z. Given the magnitude of buoyancy and the presence of a strong mid to upper level wind field across the southern plains today, the setup appears favorable for long-lived thunderstorms capable of very large hail, upwards of 3 to 4 inches in diameter, as the primary hazard. Modest low-level shear currently being sampled by the KFWS VWP, which I think it's a Fort Worth. I think that's Fort Worth, and evidence in plan view objective fields may tend to limit the overall tornado potential. However, given that expected storm motions for a right-moving supercell are generally expected along the orientation of the outflow boundary, the potential for a few tornadoes appear to be greatest with any thunderstorms that can favorably interact with that boundary. Okay, let's go over to Mesoscale discussion number 596. They really need to order this better because I'm like going back and forth here. Alrighty, here we go. So, Severe Thunderstorm Watch number 169. So this is the Severe Thunderstorm Watch, essentially just a mesoscale discussion that's going over what's happening in there. Most probable peak intensity. Hail is expected to be 2 to 3.5 inches, with tornadoes around 100 to 125 and winds 55 to 70. Fields plotted, radar, satellite, surface observations, radar winds, 18Z MLK, or 1 o'clock. 1 p.m. Central Cape, and effective shear. Here it says there's 2 bits of text. Large hail to remain the predominant hazard this afternoon. An isolated tornado risk may evolve in north central into northeast Arkansas. And then right here at the bottom, there's a hatched region, and then it says increasing tornado risk. So cool. Okay. Why there's so much to read? This is only 596. We've only gone through 6 of these discussions, and I barely have started. We still have 18 more. Cracking through. Hope to be done by 6 o'clock or less. Summary. Large hail is expected to remain the predominant severe weather hazard. That threat is expected to spread east-northeast of the existing watch. An additional severe thunderstorm watch will likely be required. Elsewhere, increasing tornado risk may materialize across north central into northeast Arkansas. Discussion. A number of supercells, both right and left moving, have developed across the watch area, with hail up to 3.25 inches in diameter being reported. A combo of low-level worm advection and increased DCVA downstream from a shortwave trough moving through Kansas are driving this convective activity. Given the progressive nature of the shortwave trough, these storms are expected to spread east-northeastward of severe thunderstorm watch number 169, likely necessitating an additional downstream watch. The majority of the thunderstorms appear to be elevated atop a boundary layer with temperatures in the 50s and 60s at most locations. However, filtered sunshine across portions of north central into northeast Arkansas have allowed temperatures to warm into the 70s. Moreover, the surface front in place across central into northeast Arkansas appear to be slowly lifting north, with dew points increasing into the mid-60s to the north of the boundary. Current thinking is that the supercell ongoing in Searcy County, Arkansas, will become increasingly surface-based as it continues east into the warming and moistening boundary layer. Ahead of that storm, rapid refresh forecast soundings indicate gradually strengthening low-level shear in response to a strengthening low-level jet across Arkansas. The net result is an increasing concern for a couple tornadoes in parts of north central into northeast Arkansas. An aerial extension of Tornado Watch number 170 may become necessary to accommodate that threat. I don't know why they said an aerial extension of Tornado Watch number 170 when it's clearly Severe Thunderstorm Watch number 169. They probably were alluding to adding a Tornado Watch, and it would be number 170, but that's that. So 597. Alrighty. So increasing potential for damaging winds and large hail, and a weather watch is likely. Watch probability is 80%. You can see 100 to 125 miles per hour for tornadoes, wind 65 to 80, hail 1.5 to 2.5 inches, fields plotted, radar, satellite, radar winds, mixed layer convective available potential energy, and shear. I'm not even going to read this because it's extremely repetitive, and so you can essentially take a look at this. You can pause the video and take a look at this because it's extremely redundant when I say fields plotted or tornado strength or this or that. Unless it's something significantly severe, then I won't necessarily repeat it. Okay, summary. The potential for large hail and damaging winds appear to be increasing across the discussion area. A few tornadoes are also possible, and a weather watch is likely. Discussion. A cluster of thunderstorms have recently intensified across portions of north central into northeast Louisiana, near and to the north of Monroe. The 18Z Shreveport sounding indicated the presence of a cap in the 1 to 2 kilometer feature, and it's likely the storms are elevated above that feature. The downstream air mass across northeast Louisiana into west central Mississippi continues to destabilize as temperatures have warmed into the mid-80s with lower 70s dew points. And some recent model guidance suggests that the current storm activity will become progressively more surface-based as it moves into Mississippi. The wind profile observed in the Shreveport sounding data is considerably stronger than that currently being observed by the current Jackson VWP. As such, potential exists for organized storm modes, including supercells and bow echoes capable of large hail and damaging winds as the primary hazards. A few tornadoes cannot be ruled out, especially as the stronger low-level wind fields overspread the area. Alrighty, we're moving on to 598. We're chugging along here. Alrighty. It's basically the same thing, basically. So, increasing severe weather risk by 21Z, a weather watch is likely. This is what the graphic looks like if you want to pause. Let's read the description. Summary. The threat for severe thunderstorms is expected to develop across western parts of the discussion area by 21Z. All severe weather hazards appear possible and a weather watch is likely. Discussion. Scattered strong to occasionally severe thunderstorms are ongoing across central and northeast Arkansas as of 19Z, generally along and to the north of a warm front lifting north through the area. While widespread clouds have limited daytime heating over northeast Arkansas into western Tennessee, the presence of a very moist boundary layer is resulting in estimated instability of 2,500 to 3,000 joules per kilogram. Latest model guidance suggests that the ongoing thunderstorms will continue to intensify as they spread east and encounter the increasingly unstable air mass in place across the discussion area. While the current Memphis VWP indicates relatively weak winds in the lowest 4 kilometers, the upstream Little Rock VWP shows much stronger flow through that layer, which will spread east into the area later this afternoon. Given the degree of instability in place, the setup appears supportive of embedded supercells and Boeing structures capable of all severe weather hazards. Okay, 599. Oh boy. Okay. Alrighty. So, the only thing that stands out to me is that hail is expected to be over 4 inches in diameter. Increasing severe weather threat across tornado watch number 171. So they issued downstream watches and stuff like that. Actually, I shouldn't say downstream. This was expected to be issued. But yeah. So, also the greatest near-term potential is expected across a portion of Texas because of a lone supercell that's expected to potentially strengthen. So, wouldn't doubt that in my mind. The low is over here, and the cold front and occluded fronts are moving sharply. And there's a dry line as well. Oh my god, why is there so much to read? Okay, summary. The threat for all severe hazards with very large to giant hail is the primary risk, increasing across portions of Tornado Watch 171. Discussion. Supercell development is ongoing across a surface boundary across portions of northwest Texas and south central Oklahoma, with recent reports of golf ball size hail in Archer County, Texas. The environment ahead of this boundary is strongly unstable, with latest mesoanalysis depicting 3 to 4,000 joules per kilogram plus of ML Cape underlying strong deep layer flow as sampled by regional VWPs, and 50 to 60 plus knots of effective bulk shear. The greatest threat with these storms is expected to be very large to giant hail, over 4 inches in diameter potentially, owing to steep mid-level lapse rates, strong buoyancy within the hail growth zone, and elongated hodographs. While the tornado threat may remain somewhat limited owing to modest low-level shear, tornado potential will likely be locally maximized with any supercells that can favorably interact with a modifying surface outflow boundary analyzed near the Red River Valley. The greatest near-term potential for a tornado may exist with the ongoing supercell in Clay County, Texas, given its proximity to the aforementioned outflow boundary, with recent WOFS runs depicting greater tornado probabilities with this storm over the next 1 to 2 hours. With time, expectation is for some clustering and upscale growth of supercells to occur as storms progress southeastward, which will favor an increase in the threat for damaging and severe winds and the potential for destructive and wind-driven hail. Okay, that was 599. Finally, 600. 600. Yay. Okay, so the hail is 2.75 to 4.25 inches. Definitely not something good. We have 14 more mesoscale discussions to go. So, that's really all I notice. For here, the mesoscale discussion is concerning tornado watch number 170, and it says, near-term severe threat continues in eastern Arkansas. Tornado and large hail threat increasing in southeast Oklahoma by 21 to 22Z, and there is an increasing tornado risk by 21 to 22Z, specifically over here, due to this potential supercell that will likely move into the environment. Alrighty. An all-hazard severe weather threat is expected to persist in the eastern part of Tornado Watch 170 for the next hour or so. Another wave of severe thunderstorms capable of very large hail and a few tornadoes will move into western parts of the watch area in southeast Oklahoma by 21 to 22Z. As of 1950Z, Mosaic radar data indicated a north to south band of strong to severe thunderstorms, including supercell structures moving through the far eastern part of Tornado Watch 170 in eastern Arkansas. That activity will pose a threat for all severe weather hazards for the next hour or so before continuing east into Tornado Watches number 173 and 174. Farther west, a broken band of supercells have recently evolved over south-central Oklahoma, with that activity being focused along a composite outflow and warm front lifting north. Between these two convective regimes, persistently elevated thunderstorm activity has deposited a convectively overturned and at least temporarily stable air mass over central and northern Arkansas. The air mass on the western edge of the cold pool bubble in far west central Arkansas into southeast Oklahoma is recovering, with ML Cape rebounding to 2,500 to 3,500 joules per kilogram of Cape, per the latest objective analysis. The recovering air mass, coupled with a kinematic environment featuring 50 to 55 knots of effective bulk shear and effective storm relative helicity of around 200 meters squared per second squared, will support the continuation of aforementioned south central Oklahoma supercells in western parts of the watch area by 21 to 22Z. And a strong tornado or two is possible. Okay, 601, 601, 601. 601. Okay. Severe threat continues across severe thunderstorm watch number 169, with a greatest near-term severe weather threat occurring because of this tiny thunderstorm complex. 2 to 3.5-inch hail is expected, and, everything else. So, I'm not going to read the summaries anymore, just because the summaries are kind of already stated, just worded a different way. I'm just going to go straight to the discussion. You could always pause and read the summary on your own. Discussion. Ongoing thunderstorms have largely decreased in intensity across much of Weather Watch number 169 over the past hour, with the exception being an elevated supercell ongoing across south-central Missouri that has produced several reports of large hail and damaging wind gusts over the past couple of hours. The greatest severe potential in the near term is expected with this supercell as it continues eastward into southeastern Missouri. Elsewhere across Weather Watch number 169, low-level warm advection continues to maintain 1 to 2,000 joules per kilogram of MU Cape, with lifted parcel levels between 700 to 850 millibars. Latest high-resolution guidance continues to depict the potential for additional thunderstorms to develop and move into the western and central portions of the watch area over the next 1 to 2 hours, amid continued upper-level support ahead of an approaching shortwave moving through Kansas. Elongated hodographs, steep level lapse rates, effective bulk shear of 60+ knots will continue to support the potential for elevated supercell structures and an attendant risk for large hail and isolated damaging wind gusts with any future development. Any developing thunderstorms that can become surface-based along and south of a surface frontal boundary currently analyzed across northern Arkansas may bring the potential for a tornado or two. Trends will continue to be monitored. Local watch extensions in time may be needed. Boy, this is going to be one tough video to make. 602. Let me blow my nose once again. I am back. This is probably the longest video I will ever be making on this channel. Hopefully not. So this is Mesoscale discussion number 602, uh, concerning tornado watch number 171. This says right here, cluster of intense supercells will track across the metroplex, referencing the DFW. Very large hail is possible. Uh-oh. Shit. 2.75 to 4.25 inch hail is expected, along with some tornado and wind potential. Discussion. A line segment of embedded supercells extends from northeast of Breckenridge to west of Denton, Texas, moving southeastward at 25 knots. These storms have produced several reports of severe hail in the last 1 to 2 hours, including 2-inch hail in Jack County. The air mass ahead of these storms is very moist and unstable, with dew points in the mid-70s and ML Cape approaching 4,000 joules per kilogram. Effective shear values over 50 knots and mid-level lapse rates around or greater than 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer suggested continued supercell structures capable of very large hail. And given the quasi-linear nature of this cluster of thunderstorms, there is the potential for the development of one or more bowing structures capable of damaging winds. Also, while low-level winds are not particularly strong, recent VID profilings suggest slightly backed surface winds and considerable hodograph curvature in the lowest 2 kilometers are contributing to 0 to 3 kilometers of storm relative helicity values being over 200 meters squared per second squared, suggesting a risk of a tornado or two this evening. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. So that was 602. Let's move to 603. Here we go. I've never seen purple before. Never seen this lavender color. So a severe wind risk will likely spread downstream into Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky through early evening. This is concerning tornado watch number 174. And there's a tornado threat, a wind threat, and a hail threat. It's nothing substantial, but it's still there. Discussion. Latest Memphis imagery shows a developing mesoscale convective vortice near north of the Memphis, Tennessee area. Additionally, swaths of severe winds have been noted in velocity imagery in the vicinity of the mesoscale convective vortice. This feature is expected to continue east-northeast over the next few hours through an axis of higher instability values located downstream across Middle Tennessee to southwest Kentucky, where surface dew points remain in the mid-60s to low 70s. Although downstream VWPs show more meager low-level helicity compared to locations further west and southwest, sufficient hodograph elongation through a deep layer appears sufficient to maintain organized convection, most likely in the form of convective bands and clusters capable of producing severe winds, and perhaps embedded circulations. Downstream watch issuance will likely be needed as this activity approaches the eastern bounds of weather watch number 174. So that's 603. Let's move on to 604. Where is 604? 604, 604. Why the hell is it over here? It's all the way up there. Alright, severe threat may be locally increasing concerning tornado watch number 474, or 174, excuse me. It's a little bit of a mesoscale convective complex. Stuff like that. Yippee. Oh boy. So, surface observations across the discussion. Surface observations across the Mississippi Valley show a stationary boundary and outflow draped across northern Arkansas into Kentucky, a supercell with a history of producing severe hail and wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour is approaching this boundary from the northwest along the eastern Missouri-Arkansas border. Although MRMS 50 DBZ echo tops depict a recently weakening trend with this storm, regional radar imagery has recently begun to sample strengthening mid-level flow within the storm, though precise feature identification is difficult given the storm's distance from the nearest RDA. Further intensification appears possible as the storm reaches the boundary where low-level shear and SRH is enhanced and a more moist and buoyant air mass resides on the immediate warm side. This may support a localized corridor of higher immediate of higher severe hail, wind, and tornado potential within the next 1 to 2 hours. Okay, 6:04. Let's move on to 6. Son of a bitch. I closed out of the goddamn tab. Okay, 6:04. 6:04, 6:04, 6:04, whatever. Dib, 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 dib. Dib, 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 dib. 6:04, 6:04, 6:04, 60. Okay, we did 6:03. We did 6:04. 6:04. Let's move on to 6:05. 6:05. Another lavender color again. Convective environment remains favorable for severe thunderstorms across portions of Mississippi and Alabama. I wonder why Memphis is just not in the risk zone. It's not in the tornado watch. They're like Memphis, Northwest Mississippi, Northeast Arkansas. I wonder why that's not in the risk watch area. Memphis isn't either. But yeah, anyways. So, discussion. Latest radar imagery from KDGX and KGWX show intensification of a supercell, including a notable three-body scatter spike, north of the Jackson, Mississippi area. Although this storm is likely elevated based on the placement of an outflow boundary, noted in surface observations, a recent 21Z sounding from Jackson sampled sufficient MU CAPE for robust convection, even when accounting for near-storm conditions within the cold pool. This sounding also sampled effective bulk shear values on the order of 50 to 60 knots, which is highly favorable for organized convection. As demonstrated by the recent trends in the supercell north of Jackson, Mississippi, this environment should continue to support intensification of ongoing elevated thunderstorms and/or development of new convection over the next several hours. 6:06. Got 8 more to go. Oh yeah. Here we go. Severe storms will continue eastward. Storm coverage expected to increase. The tornado threat is up there with 120 to 145 miles per hour. So that's the most concerning part concerning tornado watches numbers 170 and 177. So, discussion. 3 distinct clusters of severe and supercell thunderstorms are present this afternoon over Oklahoma and Arkansas. One is southeast of FYV, one near FSM, and a third near IDA. These storms will track eastward for several more hours into a very moist and moderately unstable air mass. Forecast soundings and the Little Rock VAD profiling suggest sufficient low-level and deep layer shear for continued supercell storm structures and a risk of all severe modes. The low-level jet is expected to strengthen this evening around dusk, resulting in increased storm coverage and increasing tornadoes. The risk of a few tornadoes. So that was 6:06. Let's move on to 6:07. Oh Lord, shit. 6,000 joules per kilogram in Mexico. I have not really seen that in a very long time. So, uh, here it says an isolated severe thunderstorm will pose a risk of very large hail for a few hours this evening. A weather watch is not expected. Yes, mesoscale discussions can be issued for one very lone cell. And so the main threat is hail, but there's also a tornado threat and a wind threat. Uh, Discussion. And then an isolated, intense thunderstorm has formed in Terrell County, Texas, just east of Sanderson. This cell has formed along the surface dry line in a very hot and moist and unstable air mass. This storm will likely persist for a couple of hours, tracking into Val Verde County, and left splits from this supercell could affect southern Crockett County as well. Very steep mid-level lapse rates, high CAPE, and supercell structures will continue to pose a risk of large hail over 2 inches and locally damaging winds. Coverage of storms are expected to remain sparse, so a watch is not currently anticipated. 6:08. We just got 6 more. Alrighty. So, this is not good whatsoever. Intense supercell storm producing very large hail and damaging winds will continue. Main threat is hail, 2.75 to 4.25 inches in diameter. And this is concerning tornado watch number 171. Uh, Discussion: An intense supercell with a long history of very large and damaging hail is currently located in Johnson County, Texas. This cell will continue to track southeastward for the next 1 to 2 hours into a very moist and unstable air mass. Shear profiles are sufficient for all severe modes, including wind-driven significant hail and occasional tornadoes. New storms have formed on the western flank of the large supercell over Stephens and Palo Pinto counties, and these storms appear to be behind the primary outflow of the supercell, but sufficient elevated cape will pose a risk of large hail from this activity as it sags southeastward. 609, 609. Boom shagalaga. Severe threat gradually diminishing. Yeah, this is just a bunch of jumbled garbage and mesoscale convective vortices. So the threat is just so abysmal. Uh, Discussion. Cloud top warming has been observed in geostationary operational environmental satellite infrared imagery over the past hour or so across Middle Tennessee and southern Kentucky as a poorly organized convective band continues to spread east-northeastward. MRMS VIL values have also been declining, suggesting a steady weakening trend is well underway. Regional radar imagery depicts a pair of mesoscale convective vortices across the region that may continue to promote localized ascent as they migrate east into a strongly sheared air mass with lingering, albeit diminishing, buoyancy. Consequently, sufficient ascent and shear should remain in place over the next couple of hours to support sporadic damaging winds within the more robust convective cells and bands. However, this potential should continue to steadily diminish the evening hours as nocturnal cooling and convective overturning will further erode buoyancy. 610, 610. Here we go. Scattered severe thunderstorms will continue across Arkansas this evening. Concerning tornado watch number 177, and the tornado threat is the highest, with the threat being 120 to 145 miles per hour. This is sheer, or it's SRH. 500 in Greenville? Bruh. Okay, here we go. Discussion. Three distinct clusters of intense storms continue to trek eastward across Arkansas, over Van Buren County, Yell County, and Hempstead County. These storms will likely persist eastward across Weather Watch 177 for several more hours, where moderate cape and sufficiently strong low-level shear will maintain the risk of supercells and a few tornadoes. Strong tornadoes are possible if more discrete storm modes develop, and the Little Rock VAD is sampling the strengthening wind fields, now showing over 500 meters squared per second squared of 0 to 3 kilometer storm relative helicity and significant tornado parameter values over 5. Increased warm advection and lift has led greater coverage of storms in the past 2 hours. This activity will spread eastward into the west of Weather Watch 177 this evening, likely requiring a new watch in the next hour or two over eastern Arkansas, west Tennessee, and northern Missouri. Or Mississippi, excuse me. 611, 611, 611. The potential for all hazards, including tornadoes, is likely increasing across the Arkansas region. Tornado threat is the strongest, and it's concerning tornado watches 173 and 177. Discussion. Over the past 30 to 45 minutes, new convection has developed over southeast Arkansas within a focused zone of low-level warm air advection. Velocity data from KTGX radar website or radar site reveals an organized mid-level mesocyclone with one of these cells, while lightning counts continue to increase. This activity will continue to spread southeast towards the Arkansas region over the next couple of hours. Regional VWPs are beginning to show the early onset of the nocturnal low-level jet with 0 to 1 kilometer SRH increasing to 250 to 300 meters squared per second squared over the past hour. Although nocturnal cooling has begun, it will likely be modulated due to the high dew points in the upper 60s to mid 70s. This low-level moisture continues to support MLK values in the 1 to 2,000 joules per kilogram range immediately downstream of the intensifying convection, with SDP values remaining between 4 and 7. Consequently, the severe threat will likely increase over the next hour or so, including the potential for significant tornadoes as this convection traverses a highly favorable environment. 612, we can do this. We can do this. We can do this. 612. The tornado threat will likely persist early into the early morning hours, and this is concerning tornado watches number 173 and 177. Discussion. Regional velocity data continues to show mid-level mesocyclones with a pair of supercells across southeast Arkansas, as well as weaker circulations within a mix of convective clusters and weak supercells across far eastern Arkansas, northern Missouri, and far southwest Tennessee. Latest mesoanalyses trend show overall buoyancy decreasing from east to west due to the onset of nocturnal cooling. However, dew points in the mid-60s to low 70s along and near the Mississippi River will likely modulate nocturnal stabilization and maintain sufficient MLK to sustain ongoing surface-based convection. Additionally, regional VWPs and RAP mesoanalysis estimates depict effective SRH on the order of 200 to 400 meters squared per second squared, which will help maintain some tornado threat. Given these trends, the expectation is that some severe risk will persist into the early morning hours and will require either local extensions in time and or just new watches within the hour. Two more. Okay, large hail threat will continue. This is south of the DFW metro. This includes Waco, Crockett, Palestine, and Corsicana. Actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't include Corsicana. It just includes Waco, Crockett, and Palestine. 2 to 3.5-inch hail is expected with this supercell. Or supercells. Discussion. Two intense supercells continue to affect parts of north-central Texas over Hill, Bosque, and Limestone counties. This cluster of storms has a long history of significant hail damage during the past few hours. Cape values remain very high, with steep lapse rates and strong deep layer shear indicated on the 0Z Fort Worth sounding. However, cap strength is increasing as the boundary layer slowly cools. This is likely to lead to some weakening over the next couple of hours. However, nevertheless, some severe risk will likely persist until at least midnight. And finally, 614. I may just check to see what 615 is. Yeah, yeah, no, we're not doing 615. 614. New storms developing with a hail threat. This is on the morning of April 29th, basically. Almost. Uh, yeah, it's on the morning of April 29th in the east. In the central US, it's not really. It's still 11:25 p.m. Central. So, uh, new storms developing with hail threat. These all remain kind of modest. So, here we go. Thunderstorms have developed over the last 45 minutes over southeast Arkansas along a prefrontal boundary. These storms are in a very moist and moderately unstable air mass with MLK values around 1,000 joules per kilogram. Storms have intensified rapidly, with mesh values suggesting severe hail is already occurring. VADs at Little Rock and Memphis and model guidance show substantial veering of low-level winds have occurred in this area, suggesting hail is the main concern as these storms track eastward into Weather Watch 179 during the next couple of hours. Nevertheless, sufficient low-level shear remains for at least the risk of an isolated tornado. Finally, we're done. Alrighty. This is definitely 1 hour 15 minutes or something like that. So I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and hopefully this video doesn't bore you to tears. Because this is just me doing what I love, and I love what I do, and I'm very happy that I can do this for everybody. Thank you all for being here for me. Thank you all for supporting me as a community, and have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And don't forget about your mother this Mother's Day.